We're moving on to game 5 as the Celtics have another opportunity to win the Larry O'Brien Trophy, this time at home as they take their now 3-1 lead to Boston, while the Mavs have their backs against the wall and need another big-time performance to give them a chance at a game 6. So, Joe, I got to kick it to you, man. Give me your keys to victory for game 5 and who wins. Will the Celtics be the 2024 NBA champs after game 5, or are we going back to Dallas for a game 6?
I believe that they watched a lot of tape. I think that they're going to watch how Dallas defended them, where the weaknesses were, how they're going to combat that a little bit, because they were really trying to do, half-ass screens, trying to get, that pick and pop going. I think that the Celtics are going to be a little more physical on the box outs, be a little more attentive to people around them, really have their heads a little more on a swivel. But it's not going to matter if Dallas is going to hit the shots they were hitting in this game. It's really not. And at the end of the day, I think Boston maybe figures a few things out. I expect this to be a significantly closer game. I don't expect Dallas to be blown out in this game. I think this is going to be very similar to game 2, maybe game 3, where it comes down sort of to the wire, a few plays here and there maybe, which I don't think game 3 should have been as close as it was anyway. Boston does what Boston does and let them back in the game. But this one's hard. This is a hard pick here because Dallas figured some shit out. They looked like the team we thought they were going to look like. They honestly looked exactly like I wanted to see what I saw in game 4 and game 3 from them. I think they needed to see it in game 3 to really realistically have a chance at the series, because it's hard to play 4 games in a row that good. I don't know if this is the game that Boston puts a nail in the coffin, though. I really don't. I think that it is going to take a perfect game from Boston, which we have not seen in this finals yet. They have had consistent, hiccups. Either Tatum's not on, the threes aren't falling, or, they have injuries, whatever it may be. We have not seen them put it together for a game yet. Realistically, I don't know if this is the game Boston does it, but that's what it's going to take if Dallas is going to play the way they played. I think it's really going to depend on how the first 10 minutes go. But personally, I think Dallas is going to win this one. I think Dallas is going to send this back to Dallas. I think that if Dallas wins this game, the series goes 7. I think this is going to be one of those series where if Dallas wins game 5, I don't know if Boston is going to know what to do in Dallas in game 6. I see it come back to Boston. And at that point, it starts creeping in the back of your head as a Boston fan, like, here we go again.
Here we go again. We've watched them do it a million times. They get complacent. They honestly, in game 4, Boston looked like the Celtics that played the Golden State Warriors. Yeah.
That's what they look like. Poor decisions in the passes. Every time you thought they would come back, they missed free throws. They were throwing the ball out of bounds. They weren't on the same page. The communication was lacking. The ball got stagnant. It didn't move the way you wanted it to move. They weren't making the extra pass. They weren't doing the things you expected them to do. That's the Celtics you don't ever want to see. And the Celtics are going to have to look themselves in the mirror and say, was that Dallas that made us play that way? Or was that us? And if it was Dallas, how do we fix that? And if it's us, then it's always been us, and that's a problem. So I'm going to give a score prediction here. And I think this is going to be the first game in the series that both teams go over 100. I'm going to call it 108-102 Dallas.
Dude, we have a very similar score prediction. My score prediction's almost identical to that. I'll get into it. But you made a lot of really good points there. I mean, like you mentioned, Joe, I mean, it's if this series ends up going back to Dallas for a game 6, it's hard to imagine it not end after that going back to Boston for a game 7, because Dallas looks so energetic on their home floor in game 4. This is a if Celtics fans don't want to sweat, I think this is a must win. But if the Dallas Mavericks end up getting this game, Celtics fans and Celtics players, everyone and anything involved with the Celtics is going to be sweating in game 6, because if there's a game 7, again, we've seen game 7s throughout all sports, and you never know what's going to happen in a game 7. It's going to be a very, very interesting game. But first of all, okay, for my actual spiel, I've got a few things here. And I mentioned, Joe, you were talking earlier. I disagree with a few of the things that you were talking about earlier. I'm going to get to one of them here. It might be controversial, or at least relatively controversial. So bear with me. And again, they're not just random hot takes that I'm going to say while I'm going here. These are things that I really believe. And I've been gone for a little while and I got some shit that I got to get off my chest. Okay. So I'm going to get it off my chest. But first of all, as far as keys to victory go for Boston, are we going to see that lights out 3-point shooting game like you talked about, Joe, where they hit 20 to 25 threes? Because if that happens at home in a game 5, I'm not going to say the Mavs have no shot to win that game, because Kyrie and Luka could do that, LeBron and Kyrie game 5 2016 finals thing where they both drop 40 and still be able to overcome that. But it would be very difficult, almost impossible to overcome if the Celtics hit 20 to 25 threes. But for the Celtics, without Porzingis, again, more than likely, again, that's pure speculation on my part. I just don't think he's going to play again. So if they're without him, can they have that same spacing and knock down their threes with more Al Horford and Xavier Tillman on the floor? And they have to do a better job in the paint on Kyrie and Luka's penetration and on the offensive glass as well, because Dallas was 13-4 in terms of offensive rebounds in game 4. So they got to limit them to as many one-shot possessions as possible. And that will be tough with how much Boston swishes, because they end up with a lot of Drew Holiday or Derek White trying to box out Lively and Gafford because of those switches. And that's a really tough ask for those guys, even though Derek White and Drew Holiday are obviously super tough. They're dogs, but it's a tough ask for guys who are just physically small to have to box out guys like Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford. So it's going to be an interesting there to see how they kind of combat those offensive rebound. However, Joe, I want to talk about the guy who is supposed to be the Celtics' best player, and he has not played like it, and that is Jason Tatum. Joe, you've been talking about how he's overhated and he makes winning plays. I agree to a certain extent. He is overhated and he makes winning plays. Also, by the way, we're recording this on Father's Day. Shout out to all the fathers out there. You guys are amazing. And I've seen a lot of videos of Jason Tatum and his relationship with Deuce. He's got an amazing relationship. He seems like he's a great father. So shout out to him for that. He seems like he's a great guy too. So like nothing that I'm about to say about Jason Tatum is critical of him as a guy or as a teammate. He seems like an amazing teammate. He's made a lot of sacrifices for the team. I'm strictly talking about Jason Tatum's on-court performance here. This is all I'm talking about. Okay. And he has done a lot of the little things better. But let's be honest. We now have a 10-game finals sample size with this year's finals and the 2022 finals versus the Warriors. He has been terrible compared to how he normally is, let alone the expectations we have for a superstar in the NBA finals, especially one who a lot of people are saying is top 3 in the NBA, and some are even saying is the best player on the planet, okay? I'm going to start by comparing Jason Tatum in the finals to Jason Tatum the rest of his playoff career, okay? So when you look at individual series for Jason Tatum in his entire playoff career, Jason Tatum has played 20 series in his playoff career. There's only 4 series where Jason Tatum has averaged less points than in his 2 finals appearances. And all those were in his first and second seasons where Jason Tatum wasn't Jason Tatum yet. He was not a superstar. But since he's been a superstar, the 2022 finals and the 2024 finals are the series he's averaged the least amount of points. But that's fine as long as he's efficient, right? Well, actually, it turns out of the 20 playoff series he's been a part of, only the 2019 Eastern Conference Finals versus Milwaukee, where again, he was in his second year in the NBA, he had a worse field goal percentage than he does in these 2 finals. He shot 36.7% from the field in 2022. And you'd think that would get better in 2024. He shot 36.5% in 2024. So slightly worse, but basically the same. Okay. The only 2 series in his career, other than that one in 2019, where he's been under 40% in the playoffs. So he has taken a steep dive in efficiency in his finals career so far. But everyone's like, oh, he's rebounding, right? Actually, his rebounds aren't even in the top 10 of his best series in his playoffs so far for either of his finals appearances. So he's not rebounding as good as he normally does in the playoffs. His assists are good, though, like you mentioned, Joe. In 2022, his 7 assists were second best of any series, and this year's 6.3 is good for 5th best in his playoff career. But that doesn't make up for his poor shooting. Jason Tatum is the worst shooter in NBA Finals history of guys who have over 100 field goal attempts, okay? If he had that field goal percentage for a whole regular season, it would be 2% worse than anyone in the NBA. Scoot Henderson had the worst field goal percentage in the NBA this year at 38%. Hell, even Jordan Poole shot above 40%, and Jordan Poole sucks ass, okay? So I am not giving Jason Tatum a pass for the NBA Finals level brickage, if that's a word. And I am not sure how the last couple of games have been defensively for him, but I know games 1 and 2 with Tatum as the primary defender, the Mavs shot 15 of 25. That's 60% from the field. And in those games, they scored 89 and 98 points respectively. So they didn't make any shots, but 60% on Tatum. So I say all that to say this about Tatum. Whether you like it or not, so far the finals moment has been too big for Jason Tatum in his career. This year, we're not dwelling on it because the team is winning. And when the team wins, we get to say, oh, he made winning plays. But in reality, this year, he's just got a better team that helps him win games. He's been just as mediocre in the finals as he was in 2022. That, again, the stats say as much, but the team is now better. So if the Celtics end up winning this finals the same way they won games 1 through 4, please do not make this about Jason Tatum alone, because this is a great team. The front office, first Danny Ainge, and now Brad dropped a cup. First Danny Ainge, and now Brad Stevens deserve a lot of credit for building this amazing roster, okay? Joe Mazzulla also deserves a ton of credit for being one of the smartest coaches in basketball, someone who I personally underestimated and I have been completely wrong about. He has done a great job. I actually love Joe Mazzulla now. He's got like some weird quirky stuff to him, but he just seems like he cares so much about the game, and he seems like a such super smart basketball mind. So shout out to him. And again, the rest of the guys on the roster also deserve a lot of credit for making winning plays. You know who else makes a lot of winning plays? Eric White, Jaylen Brown, Al Horford, even Xavier Tillman when he's been in. They make a lot of winning plays. But none of those guys get a pass for shooting poorly every game but one in their NBA Finals career like Jason Tatum does. Now, if Jason Tatum drops 50 in a closeout game and they win, I'll eat my words. Jason Tatum, you got me. I didn't think you had it in you yet, and you did it, okay? And to be fair, other superstars have had slow starts to their finals careers, both results-wise and in terms of winning and losing, and in terms of numbers. LeBron is the obvious one that comes to mind. Obviously, 2007, my Spurs swept him in 4 games, and then 2011, he shot really poorly, and you could argue he choked in that 2011 finals and lost. But Tatum deserves credit as well for making sacrifices to win and those winning plays you talked about. But so far, Tatum has not been the main reason, like the real superstar carry the team reason everyone's trying to make it out to be, that the Celtics are in this spot. And I just wanted to make that very crystal clear before I give my game pick, Joe. As far as my game pick goes, listen, like I mentioned, Tatum has not been the main reason that they've had success. With all that being said, I do think he's going to have a better game 5. I think part of it is he's just kind of due for a better game. He's been, I think the pressure has gotten to him a little bit as far as his shooting goes, but I think part of it is he's just kind of due for a better game. So I do think he has a better game 5, and the Celtics better be better in game 5 or the fans are going to let them have it. But here's the thing, all right? I've gotten the last 3 individual games wrong, so I don't know. Fuck it. Don't listen to me. I don't know what I'm doing here. But guess what? Okay. Luka and Kyrie are going into Boston. Kyrie is getting the boos again. But this time, a shorthanded Boston who has Porzingis active again, but he doesn't see the floor, can't beat Dallas on their home floor. Dallas is taking this game 5. Joe, I wrote down 110 to 102. You said 108 to 102. I said
so
that would have been crazy. And Luka and Kyrie both have 30 plus, and we are getting a game back in Dallas because, Joe, as you know, and as we talked about earlier, when have the Boston Celtics ever made it easy on you? And when has it ever just been what it's supposed to be? And by the way, I want this on record too, okay? We saw the Celtics last year in the conference finals, like I talked about, come back from 3-0 to make it 3-3 before losing game 7 at home in the NBA final or in the conference finals to the Heat. And I picked the Mavs in 7 before this series. And also the Red Sox in 2004, one of my very first baseball memories, came back from 3-0 and beat my Yankees. And I was on the floor crying as a 7-year-old kid. So it would be only fitting that the Dallas Mavericks come back from 3-0 to make it 3-3 with a game 7 in Boston. But this time, the Mavs will win it. It is still Mavs in 7, and they are coming back from a 3-0 deficit, Joe, because why not? I think Porzingis isn't playing the rest of the series, which I will believe he is. He's going to be out for the rest of the series. The Mavs have a shot. I think they proved that in game 4, and they will again in game 5. And then Celtics players and fans like Joe, your buttholes are going to be this tight and are going to be real, real tight for game 6 in Dallas.